Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here, once again based on one of your new suggestions. This one having to do with a monster, a beast, that is apparently found there in various parts of Mexico. In fact, this is a mishmash of sorts when it comes to this creature, because not only is it considered a cryptid, but there may also be supernatural elements to it, more on the lines of something associated with mysticism. More on that here in just a moment. But yes, if you're there in Mexico, certain parts of the areas like Yucatan, Campeche, and Quintana Roo, that's where you have a good chance of running into this scary creature. In fact, you're looking at a representation of it now. It goes by various names. Its most common name is known as the Huay Chivo. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Huay Chivo. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating information associated with this mishmash of sorts. So what is this Huay Chivo? Well, as I mentioned just a moment ago, it can go by several different names. Another name for it is known as the Nagual, and yet another version of it is known as the Nahual. So I guess it just depends on maybe which area that this creature is encountered, and then that's where it has those various versions of the names, or it could be just completely different creatures altogether and they just get confused with one another. But first off, let's talk about the actual physical characteristics of this thing. So it's hard to say like 100% concrete what it looks like. The reason for it is this: it's considered a shape shifter. It can definitely change into various forms of animals and into hybrids of animals as well. For example, people have seen it either be a goat, a dog, or a deer, or in other cases, more on the lines of a wolf-like creature, maybe even another form of combination. So in other words, half man, half wolf, half man, half deer, half man, half goat, and so on. And then also it seems to have these burning red eyes that people have stated as well, and the idea that it's considered tall, it's very hairy, it growls, definitely makes a lot of noise, in other words, and then it also has this very quick set of attacks that it can do, primarily when it comes to it going on the hunt for its prey. Now, luckily enough, there doesn't seem much evidence as to it doing harm to people, at least not 100% concrete. Instead, if you want to know where this creature is at, as I mentioned a minute ago, you have to go to the southeastern Mexican states of the Yucatan, and then the Campeche, and then Quintana Roo to be specific. And then if you go there, people will tell you, locals especially, if you're in a hot area for this creature because of the interactions around it. For example, there's going to be all these deaths associated with livestock. So in other words, hundreds of chickens could be found dismembered, half-eaten, maybe strewn about certain areas. Other creatures, cows and so on, will also be considered just completely mauled to death or just missing altogether. And then I mentioned that there's a good chance that it's not doing things to humans. It's not 100% concrete though, because also people that go reported missing in those areas of Mexico, they'll be attributed to falling a victim to this Huay Chivo. It's hard to state though, because again, this is something where if they're missing and they're not found, there's obviously no other witnesses to state, hey, I saw a Huay Chivo take that person. So it's pretty much left up to speculation. But definitely when it comes to having this creature and then having so many other livestock missing or found, at least when it comes to them being mauled to death, that's essentially the territory associated with this mythical beast. And then with regards to its mysticism, I was mentioning that earlier, it's this: it could be supernatural in the sense that its origins could be tied to a sorcerer. Who knows what's the earliest known encounter when it comes to this creature? It goes back a long time period. In fact, apparently in the Aztec books, there were some scribes that showcase what could be variations or interpretation of this Huay Chivo. If you go back that far, that means that it's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. On top of that, the legend goes that it's tied to either some kind of evil sorcerer, somebody, in other words, that knew magic, somebody that was able to use spells and other types of incantations, and then eventually became this type of shapeshifter. Hard to say, though, if this is the same one. In other words, after all these years, maybe they're just living a long time, or maybe they passed it on to another type of sorcerer or something along those lines. But yeah, that's one iteration. And then another iteration tied to mysticism is the idea that it's tied to Indians as well. In other words, people that lived there for the longest time in certain areas in Mexico, and those that also delved into magic and other type of sorcery and mysticism, whatever it could be called there in that culture. That's where they in turn made this type of foul allowance. Like, in other words, it was the dark arts, and then that caused them to do this type of stuff, to change into this evil creature. In fact, the origins of those tend to involve like sacrificing a dog, taking blood from animals, and so on. So that's where, again, it's considered very bad, very evil when it comes to those origins are tied to the Hueychivo. In fact, I was reading one account that showcased a woman who had just come out, and this was back in 2013, just come out of an area there, a church that was located there in the Yucatan called Our Lady of the Ascension. And she was there along with another crowd of people. And the reason for it was because that town all of a sudden was experiencing what could be encounters with the Hueychivo. That's where they were stating that they not only, well, first off, she saw this creature. She stated that in her area, as she was a gas station worker, she saw this thing. It instantly like blurted, just started right across her front area there at the gas station. That's where she described it as being tall and hairy and then growling and so on. And so she physically encountered this creature, but luckily there was nothing in terms of any harm to her. But around that area as well, that's where so many livestock were found just completely dismembered, mauled, and half-eaten as well. And then that's where the townsfolk had collectively stated that, yes, this is where it's having an encounter with the Hueychivo. This town, in other words, happens to have this creature there around them. There's no known indication of like how to necessarily get rid of a Hueychivo. It seems like these creatures, this Nahual and so on, like they just come and then just seem to go. Maybe they'll stay for a little while. Maybe they'll just disappear, move on into another location. Either way, though, it doesn't seem like it's permanent, but they just come about on an intermittent basis. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with these creatures. There's more along the lines of them being also tied to Mayans, how they're also potentially like from other areas of outside of Mexico as well, but there's not much information associated with that. But still, very interesting stuff to talk about this mishmash of creatures. It could be something cryptid related, it could be something more mystical, could be a shapeshifter, it could be something involving an animal or half human, half animal, so many different things. It could be targeting humans, it could not. It could also just be moving about on a semi-permanent basis. Lots of interesting things about this Hueychivo. But that's pretty much it. So again, if anyone has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. What about those of you there in the southeastern Mexican area? If you know more information there on the local side, then please let me know. Plus, I wanted to mention one more thing. It looks like it's tied to apparent sightings of the chupacabra. Either people are misinterpreting it with the chupacabra, or they are the one and the other. So how about that when it comes to linking it to another specific cryptid, an all-star, in other words. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.